Mine has a blue light on. I'm Jim Godfrey, the current chair of the CAC. So I want to welcome everyone and thank you for your time and commitment to the group. So I appreciate that. We have a quorum, and so all alternates can vote that are here in that situation. So let me start off, please, by reading the purpose statement. The primary objective of the CAC is to ensure the capital maintenance and public transportation projects and programs approved by the voters during the November 2nd, 2004 and November 6, 2012 elections were accomplished with PPRTA funds. This committee reports directly to the Board of Directors. Anybody want to step up to reading that next month? No. Okay. For some of the new members that I haven't met, welcome. I was gone last month on a trip to California, and I assume California and the West Coast is really pretty. Getting there is just not really popular. There's 4 days of desert in the middle of that stuff, and I am done with the desert. So, but we had a very uneventful trip, and thank you, Reb, for chairing the meeting last month. Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda as presented, Tom?
So moved.
So
Second.
moved. And second by Joan. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Does anyone have any public comments for items that aren't on the agenda? Any members of the public that are here? Seeing none, we'll move on. Item number 4, approval of minutes from the April 4th regular meeting. Joan?
I move approval of the minutes as presented.
Second.
Second by Lawrence, okay. So I have a motion to approve and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Ms. Beverly, financial reports.
The February sales and use tax.
Bev? Thank you.
Okay, sorry. The February sales and use tax figure is $7,119,000. So we were below the monthly budget by $364,000, but we're still ahead year to date by $296,000. So hopefully we'll have a good March.
According to the article in the paper, home building permits are up, so let's just hope that keeps going.
True, that is true. The thing is, sometimes when you read the paper, it'll quote the city of Colorado Springs, and they'll talk about March sales and use taxes. But if you read the fine print in the article, it's really February, based on February sales. So sometimes you'll see that, and you'll wonder, well, how come we didn't do better? Or we do collect on some different things, though, so it's not really, it won't always follow what the city has. It's a little closer to the county, but we also collect differently than the county because we use the state. How the state taxes is how our 1% follows. So anyway, so compared to last year for the month, we were down $290,000. So, but we're still ahead by $443,000. That's on page 2. Then page 3 through 5 is the revenue and expense summary, and there's some notes on the bottom about how this budget in this report is the budget that was approved in December, and the carryover figures were estimated carryover figures, so sometimes it'll look like they're over budget. But when I see that, I check to make sure that the actual carryovers, which will be in the amended budget, are high enough to cover what it looks like they're over budget. So we're not having any problem there. If there's a negative number in an expense account, it is due to a cost-sharing arrangement, either with CSU, Colorado Springs Utilities, or a developer. So you think, how do you have a negative expense? And that's how you would have a negative expense. So, anyway, are there any questions?
Any questions, anyone? I've just got a comment, and being as we're approaching 2 years now or so on the new approved thing, for those projects that were in RTA 1 that aren't in the process of being closed out or in final invoicing phase or some of that, and I'm talking about in the less than 90%, for instance, Meridian Road Extension and some of the others, is it possible to ask the member governments to give us an update on what some of those RTA 1 projects, the status of those that aren't in the process of final closing?
Sure, we'll do that.
I think that I would like to see that.
For
I know
next month.
and I'm looking at 99.7%, I realize that we're kind of folding things up, but when I'm looking at less than 50 or 70 or 80%, just kind of an update.
Right, and Mark Shuffle North received the $4 million in the pool. It was more than four, and that would be good to know what they're spending that on, so, okay?
If you could maybe request that they do
Sure,
that, that would be
sure.
great.
We'll put it on the agenda and remind everybody. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Bev? Thank you. 2018 capital maintenance and public transportation contract, City of Colorado Springs. Mr. Egner.
Good afternoon, Aaron Egbert, City of Colorado Springs, Public Works. We have three contracts here. The first one is Academy over Cottonwood Bridge. What we did on that, the original design had some grouted riprap, and we've swapped that out for a drop structure. And it's slightly additional costs, but I think we have a much more stable cheat creek, and it'll also support the bridge a lot better for the downstream drop structure. So that's the first one. The second one is off of North Carefree Circle ahead of our 2C overlay. We've got an existing bubbler type system where the water ponds on one side and is supposed to bubble up on the other, and those don't work very well during the winter time. So we're replacing that with a drainage system. And then the third one is ahead of the 2C. We're lining a lot of pipes from essentially Colorado Avenue all the way down to Fountain Creek. But those would be the three contracts.
Mr. Chair, do you have some questions?
Go ahead.
This has to do with that, the bubbler system there. This is the roadway maintenance operations, looking at the bid results.
Yes, there is a typo
Oh,
that
okay.
I forgot to mention. So the typo on the
Thank you.
bottom, we had listed CMS at $20,000. That was actually $60,449.
So it's changed to 20 to 60?
Correct. Yep. So the low bidder was Lucky Dog.
And my follow-up question,
Thanks for catching that.
42,000, and the high bidder was 139,000. Why the variation? I think I've asked these types of questions before.
I don't know if I have a good answer for you, but some contractors are hungrier than other contractors. Some contractors count on nobody else bidding on it, so they throw a high number that says, if I get it, I'll do that work. But they do vary substantially on some of these projects.
You okay with that, Carlos?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I want to thank the city for the updates on Cottonwood Creek and Academy Boulevard. I get those updates when they're posted out in terms of changes and stuff. And I post it on our neighborhood group called Next Door. And I think getting the information out to folks like that, for those of us that are on that, and then distributing it, I've gotten very positive feedback from that, particularly in that intersection, because of the congestion right there in that area. So I just want to thank the city for keeping us informed on that.
Thank you.
Red?
On item 3, we approved a sewer reline on 26th Street, I think with the same contractor. And I think there was another one. How long is this one? Because the 260,000, 270,000 seems a whole lot higher. And they were basically from Colorado. I know it was on 26th, it was from Colorado to Fountain.
Yep. So So I had Operations Maintenance sent me their scope of work. So there's 915 lineal feet of 24-inch ADS pipe, 50 lineal feet of 2x2 concrete box culverts, and 275 lineal feet of 18 by 30-inch CMP, kind of a squash pipe that we're having to line. So it's a little bit of a different kind of project because of the different kinds of pipes and the fairly long pipes.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Aaron? Thank you, Aaron. Do I hear a recommendation to approve the city's contract request, Joan?
I would move for recommendation as presented on all three items.
Here a second. Tom? Tom, second. Any other further questions? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Aaron.
I have the next one. Don't I?
Yes, and so while we're there, you want to do the line item request?
Certainly. So what we're doing is we're moving some money around on our existing capital projects to put the previously.
Oh, wait, hang on a minute, Aaron.
Sure.
Rick wanted to distribute some additional information on this.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Oh, yes. So how did you get the portable target for this week on this project? Oh, it had bridge, I got it, it had bridge in the title.
There was no manholes involved with this one, so I took this item.
And
Ryan's still in intensive care on that. He's slowly working out of his post-traumatic stress disorder.
okay.
Yeah, go ahead. Oh, please do. Please do.
For the recording, Rick Sonnenberg. What I just handed out, and Jessica, I'll get you a set for the file. The first page is a summary that I generated from a previous presentation by Kathleen Krager that shows the $3.5 million contribution maximum from the Pikes Peak RTA on the top half of the page. And then in the minutes from July of 2016, if you look at the page 2, the bottom paragraph, page 2 of the minutes, bottom paragraph. If you'll just go ahead and read that paragraph, please. So I'm just trying to share the history with you that the board did set a $3.5 million cap of the PPRTA contribution to the America the Beautiful Park pedestrian bridge, obviously not paying all of it, as you can see from the loose single sheet. But I just wanted to share with you the past history going back 2+ years.
Is his mic on? Is your mic on?
Yeah. But
Yeah, it's on.
any questions before Aaron presents his memo?
Any questions, Rick, on the background? Thank you, Aaron. Thanks, Rick.
All right, so yeah, that works. Okay. So we have a line item transfer from some existing capital, City of Colorado Springs RTA projects. What we're trying to do is we're going to be getting the budget up to the previously approved $3.5 million. Our goal is to advertise the construction of that PED bridge this summer through an RFP process to get the contractor on board. We still are working with the railroad and the crossing and all that stuff, so we still got a lot of details to work through. But we're moving some money out of Pikes Peak because that project's going to be completed in the summer of 19, so we've got a little bit of time to move money back into that. And then Tup Boulevard is a project that has sort of been slowed by some adjacent developers and those type of things. So that's why we chose those projects. And with that, you can fire away.
Any questions on this line item transfer? Carlos?
Yeah, thank you. Let me just verify in the memorandum here, again, if it's a typographical error or if it's correct. It's the very last sentence of the second paragraph. Says 3.5 million and keep the 1.021 million. Shouldn't that be 1.1 million? I realize you didn't prepare this memo, but I just wanted to verify that amount.
You know, I'm not exactly sure what the history is. I know historically we've moved funds into this Greenway connection bucket for projects, but I can't speak to the exact number there.
The previous paragraph.
Yeah.
Yes, that's correct. Yes, it's in the previous paragraph, so it's a repetition. But I just wanted to verify that it's just a typographical error in the memo, or if it's something significant.
If you look up just right above that, it says 3.121, and then this down here, it says 1.021, so could easily be a transfer.
It could be a typo. This project account for the RTA, there are also RTA projects along the whole Greenway corridor, so it's not just this bridge is coming out of that Greenway A-listed project.
Yeah, and I did go back and review the history. So for everything but the pedestrian bridge would be $1.1 million, and then the pedestrian bridge would be $3.5 million for a sum of $4.6 million.
We'll research that and make sure if it is a typo, we'll fix it before the board meeting next week.
Carlos, it's my recollection, and I can bring you the book. This was original requested budget was $1,021,000. They added in the next year 1.1 million to make the 2.121 million. Then at a board meeting in July, which you've got the notes of here, they added, well, it was increased from 3 million total for the bridge to 3.5 that was done by Mayor Nicoletta, and that was a cap, and it was voted on.
So
In the July meeting of 2016. And that, we've been working from the 3.5 ever since, but they were three different budgets.
Yeah, no, I realize it's been rolled up into a single budget. But if we look at the current budget for the Pikes Peak Greenway, of course, it comprises two components: the America the Beautiful, Park Bridge, as well as the other items, like, for example, the Uinta Bridge or underpass. So there's other ones there. But those funds is $1.1 million, looking at reviewing the history of Pikes Peak Greenway. And then on top of that, an additional $3.5 million was added. And I do see that there was also some funds transferred in sometime 2015, it looks like, or 2016. So it actually had some revenue associated with it. In addition to that, it had some budget increases as well from the tax. So it's a number of different buckets that make up that number, but I just wanted to clarify. I believe this should be 1.1 in this memo, and so it should be corrected. And I just wanted to ensure what
Is that
the
right?
amount was for everything but
Okay.
the bridge.
Okay.
Okay,
We'll
thank
fix
you,
that.
noted. Any other questions for Aaron on this line item transfer? So we'll ask for a motion to approve the line item transfer pending the potential clerical error on those numbers.
Mr. Chair, before we go, I'd like to ask one question.
Sure, Brian.
This is in regards to the memo that we're discussing. At the very bottom, it's mentioned that there's no construction expected on Tut Boulevard extension. Could you be a little bit more specific? Are we talking about from Dublin to the Woodman area, or are we talking beyond that or south of that?
I'm not exactly sure the location of this Tut. I just know that the Tut project is being delayed because we're not able to get some of the detention pond easements because the adjacent developers don't exactly know what they want to do yet, so they're leery of providing us the property
Okay.
through a donation process. So the whole project's just slowed down until they can get their arms around on what their development's going to look like so that it marries up with the roadway project and the drainage system all works.
I had a feeling that was the issue. The concern there is obviously that is probably one of the fastest growing areas of the city, and the traffic up there is swiftly, basically everything north of, like North Carefree.
Yep.
Is swiftly getting high amount of pressure.
We're working on Dublin. We're working on that pinch point. So we'll get to Tut. I promise we'll get to Tut.
Okay, with no further discussion, do I have a motion to approve the line item transfer?
So moved.
Reb, move, a second? Second, Clarence. Any other further discussion? All those in favor?
I got my sister's.
Reb? Any opposed? Okay. Motion carries. Thank you.
This afternoon.
6B, 6C, El Paso County. Hi, Jennifer.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Committee. Jennifer Irvin, County Engineer. We have two items for your consideration today. The first is our annual HMA Hot Mix Asphalt Overlay Program, and we're planning on spending $4.1 million this year on that program, which is pretty in line for what we've done in past years. And so we're requesting a purchase order with Martin Marietta Materials. This is purchase order for renewal. We have a contract with them, and this is the third renewal of a 4-year option. So we're requesting that approval of that one. Pretty straightforward on that. And then a little bit more convoluted, but hopefully we're trying to be as transparent as possible. This is for our West Colorado Avenue project. The second one is a purchase order for approximately $201,000, and this is with Colorado Springs Utilities. Just because of the nature of the project, Colorado Springs Utilities is tracking all these utility relocations for both gas and power, kind of under separate work orders, but it's an entire, project. So we've had a few work orders that are under $25,000, which is an administrative item, but anything over that, we are usually bringing to the PPRTA board, and we have several here. So what we're just trying to do is show you kind of what we have, the overall valuation and of that work. And so, and I would note, by the way, on one of the bullet points, we have a typo, and we need to fix that on the front page of our summary. It's 97,686.42 under the relocation of gas lines related to Columbia Road. It should be 688.42, but our overall dollar amount, the 201,168.23, is correct. In any case, what I just wanted to do is kind of show you what we've spent so far, because some of those items you hadn't seen, and then what we have upcoming, and just to try and make sure that you saw the entire picture of those utility relocations. And then also let you know, because they are working on kind of a work order basis, we will be bringing additional ones back to you, showing that total valuation as essentially reporting items and change orders.
I can only envision what that's going to look like when it's finished, how pretty that might be.
And I should bring to you, I gave an update to our Highway Advisory Commission, I think last month. We have a great aerial picture of that project as it's underway, and I'd like to bring that back to you next month. We had, courtesy of some of our coordination with other entities, Colorado Springs Fire Department has a drone. They flew it for us, and so I'll, if that's okay with you, just kind of bring it back to you next month. It's kind of a cool thing to look at and see where we are.
And it really does give an excellent overview of what's going on, seeing the from the above.
I'm thinking, after traveling as many states and places that I did, that I'm thinking that a throw the tennis shoes over the power lines across the road campaign down there just before those are removed would make a great before and after picture. No, I'm just Rep.
Jennifer, it was either last month or the month before, you brought forth contracts for materials only for asphalt, and part of the reasoning was the price is affected. That was delivered. This is a contract, so countywide, you don't use only Martin Marietta, which is fine.
For our overlay, correct. I mean, so we do bid that out and have a contract. We have considered breaking it out into two different contracts and looking at two different vendors. That creates a larger work for our folks as far as oversight for those contracts, because you're going to have those going on at one time. our $4.1 million can be done within the contract time that we have by one vendor, and we've gotten really good prices by having one vendor in the past. So as we look forward and maybe have some additional overlay for our program, maybe at some point, if we have additional monies, we may consider to do 2 vendors. But at this point, we've found that we've gotten the best price by having one. We don't have the volume that the City of Colorado Springs does with their PPRTA together with the 2C. And so maybe at some point we will in the county. I hope so.
Mr. Chair, I move approval.
We have and a second from Cheryl. Any other discussion on this item? Do I hear, Scott?
I just was wondering, of the 200,000 for utility relocates, do you have an idea how much of that might get reimbursed by CSU based on the cost share agreement?
What you're seeing as far as the purchase order is the amount that we've actual spent. I could bring that back to you. It's under the city's executive agreement, so we have those estimates, and as you may be aware, those are based upon how old the facility is, what type of facility it is, so we can bring that back kind of as an update.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, real quick.
Because we have an overall estimate for what we believe that the utility relocations are going to be, and kind of what that cost share estimate is as well.
Tom?
I don't have any question this is going to pass, because it's going to pass. But I just, it feels awkward to me that we're paying them to replace their stuff with stuff that makes it so they don't have to replace it in the future. And I'm saying it poorly, but it just, if they have a gas line that they probably have to replace in time anyway, now we're paying them to do it. And it seems to me like that ought to be their own responsibility as they respond to the needs of the area.
So, as a utility, I mean, because we are doing the project, we're on some of those locations, it's not just they're replacing the line, it's, well, we're creating the need to relocate the line, so they would not have to.
Serve their customers.
Correct. But we are creating that requirement. And what I would say is that CSU does take into account the age of the facility, so some of those facilities are pretty old that they would have had to replace anyway. That is taken into account on the relocation costs. Because if we weren't doing this project today, they wouldn't be replacing it today. So I guess I'd say, Tom, that's included, and it really depends on the utility and the type of agreements that you have with the utility. At this, I can tell you that if we were doing this under El Paso County's utility relocation agreement, we would be paying for everything, because it's a totally, the city has, because of its relationship with CSU, has a different relationship than we do in the county. So I think from this standpoint, we are, the executive agreement is much more beneficial than what we would be doing if it was under just a regular county thing. Because the city is home rule, it's different than the county, and there are different.
I
Yeah.
get it, I just don't like it.
Me either, but
Maybe we'll all, there's an intangible benefit of driving down that street without all those overheads out there, so, and worry about your side view mirror smacking the utility poles as you drive.
I think the good news too is that we've hopefully ensured that we've done, and I think CSU is also doing some relocations at their complete cost, because they know that we're putting in that road, and they don't want to get into that road again in the future. So there are utilities that you're not seeing that they are relocating to try and plan for the future as well, so.
Brian?
Well, it's actually similarly related. When this project was first being reviewed many years ago, the anticipation was that there was going to be a lot of utilities issues because of the age of the infrastructure in the area. Have we run into anything, or has a contractor actually run into anything that has caused a significant delay or holdup, or even a need to maybe redesign or do more potholing, or?
Not so much on the utilities. The other things that we found,
Subgrade?
yeah, have had much more effect, but, pardon? No unmarked graves yet, but tires, the size of cars, so.
Yeah.
So I think, and you can see in the work orders, we have an estimated cost and the actuals there. I mean, they're really not that much off, and we expect some of them will come in under and some will come in over. But, I think that CSU, the City of Colorado Springs, City of Manitou, we're all really trying to work together to get this project done as quickly as possible, so.
So far, I'm impressed. I didn't think it was possible, but it's impressive.
Mr. Chair, I just had a follow-up questions on Brian's question, so, or his comments there about, you're saying that the numbers aren't all that much off, but the final costs are all overruns. And some of them are pretty significant, like almost double. So this comment that they're close, can you elaborate on that? What do you mean by that?
Well, I think it depends on perspective. I mean, when we're looking at these are those are estimates, time and materials, and.
But they're all under. They're not.
Correct.
There's not right on the.
And what I will say is, if you look at our projects over the long-term time period, we do have projects where CSU has estimated a certain dollar amount, and it's come in significantly under. So we're not done with these utilities yet. At this point, they're all over, but I'm anticipating that there will be some that come in under. I mean, I can't promise you that.
I'm just telling you based on these numbers again, Brian.
And these are not estimates that the county does
And I
or the
appreciate
city
that.
does. These are estimates that we receive from CSU for planning purposes. What I would say is that if you look at some of our other projects, CSU has come in under, other utilities have come in under. So I'm just commenting based upon kind of the broad brush of what has happened with our utility relocations over the time of all of our projects, including PPRTA. So.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on the county's request for approval? Seeing none, do I hear a motion to approve? Joan?
Motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. Wait, we've done everything except the vote, right? Yes. Okay, my apologies. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for
And
keeping me.
I'll remember to bring that nice video, because it is really cool.
Great.
Next
Thank you.
month.
Shelley from Manitou Springs.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, CAC members. I'm Shelley Coba, the Public Services Director for the City of Manitou Springs. And the first change order I'm bringing to you for consideration on a contract on our Brook Street Bridge, which is a capital project under the RTA's capital project for Manitou Springs downtown drainage, utility, and sidewalk improvements. It's in our downtown district. We had some changes on this project. Change order number 1 was due to subsurface conditions that the contractor ran into. Car-sized boulders, which affected caisson placement and caused grade beam design, and it also extended caisson drilling time. So that change order request originally came to the City of Manitou Springs in the amount of almost $122,000, and we negotiated with the contractor and got it down to the amount that you see before you of $80,969.87. Change order number 2, which is here in front of you, is it was my mistake in the memo that you have, and the change order amount is $54,3139. We had some once the barrel of the bridge was fixed by the stonemason and we got the concrete on top of it. We had a little bit of a grade issue on the northwest corner, and we had to take out some driveway to make sure that this would be a drivable bridge. And fortunately, the property owner was willing to work with us, and so that change order is $54,3139. And I'll stand for questions.
Shelley, just for the record, the change order 1, you said it was $8,969. You mean $80,000, right?
$80,969. That's correct.
And that was down from 100 what?
$121,965 was the original change order sought by the contractor. We have also a project manager, a consulting team on this. They reviewed it. We reviewed it. We had a big meeting with them, and we were able to negotiate it down $40,000.
Nice job on that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And on your memo, I don't see the 54,000 number that you were talking about with the bridge. All I see is an updated memo.
Right.
My mistake, sorry.
Right, and the modified change order came to me just 2 days ago because we had enough grade differential that I asked them to put some reflective posts, and that's why there's this cost change. So they went out and got those posts in time to revise this change order before this meeting today.
So that was a traffic safety?
It was a traffic safety issue, yes.
Very good. Any other questions or any questions for Shelley in Manitou Springs?
Just a note, at the bottom, then she needs to make the correction on how much is remaining in your contract.
Correct, thank you.
Oh, with the revised number?
Yeah, at the very bottom of the memo.
Right, okay. We have a recommend approval with the suggested change.
Second.
Brian, second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Very good. Thank you, Shelley.
Thank you very much.
City of Colorado Springs Transit Service monthly update, item 7A. Brian.
Good afternoon. Brian Vitulli, City of Colorado Springs, Mountain Metro Transit with your monthly transit report. For the month of March of 2018, for our fixed route services, we saw a decrease of 9.6%. This is the second month in a row that we've seen a decline in fixed route ridership. No determination as to why, but we're tracking it. There was one less weekday in March of 2018 than there was in March of 2017, which could account for some decrease, but not quite sure why. But we will continue tracking that. For our ADA powered transit service, we saw a little over a 1% increase for that same time period. And for our van pool services, we operated 25 van pools this March, and we saw a ridership increase of about 2.3% over March of 2017. Project update. Just this past Sunday, we implemented our spring service change, and things have been working smoothly as far as we know. This includes increased Saturday frequency on routes 1 and 3, and we added some off-peak service, some more off-peak service on routes 10, 19, and 32, and we removed that long-term detour due to the I-25 Cimarron interchange project. And with the spring service change, that's usually when we kick off the summer season in Manitou Springs with additional Manitou shuttle service. So Route 36, which is the shuttle that operates on Manitou Avenue, 7 days a week from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. and then until midnight on Friday night and Saturday night. That started also on Sunday. And on the last page of this item, last month at the RTA board meeting, City of Colorado Springs Council member Guy Singler asked a question as to what we do to promote ridership or increase ridership. Because he picked up on February's ridership numbers and saw a decrease. And so we just wanted to put this together. So this is in the board packet, but we also wanted to bring this to you today. So over the past several years, as we've been trying to rebuild our service, our system from the Great Recession, we've been focusing on improving in a lot of areas. Transit service, implementing some key projects and programs, and some customer service enhancements. In fact, we usually set a goal for our organization every year, and while it's usually ranked high, I think 2016 was the year of the customer, so a lot of the programs that we implemented and a lot of the service that we enhanced was to help that customer experience. All of these improvements have been made by the ongoing RTA revenues that have been quite good to us the last couple of years. as well as some significant increases in the city general fund budget for transit, which we appreciate. But to highlight that, some of the transit service increases that we implemented, we added 50-minute service to North Academy Boulevard just this past fall. This fall, we plan on adding 50-minute service to South Academy, so that entire corridor will have 50-minute weekday service. We've made an awful lot of on-time performance improvements, which is key to the customer experience. If they can't get where they're going on time, then they're not going to have a good experience. We've added revenue service hours. Spring of 2016, we implemented 50-minute service on both North and South Nevada Avenues, basically connecting the UCCS area to downtown and then continuing south to Southgate Road. Added a lot of off-peak service, so that's weekday evenings and Saturdays and Sundays. We did some route restructuring to provide quicker travel times. And this is good news that we just found out about a week or so ago. We were planning to implement service to Memorial North and Children's Hospital this fall, and to Pikes Peak Community College. And it was going to be a base level of service, about 9 hours a day during the weekdays. And we applied earlier this year to the Colorado Springs Health Foundation for a grant, and we received that grant. So what that's going to do is enable us to up that 9 hours of service a day to about 12 and a half hours of service a day for 2 years, and that's just weekdays only. And, we'll reevaluate after 2 years. We'll develop a success threshold, and if we're meeting that, the city, after those 2 years, the city will take the cost of those routes on and incorporate them into their system. Also, as part of this grant was service to Penrose St. Francis North. Early on, we've been discussing this a lot with Memorial North and Children's, and at the time, Penrose St. Francis was not interested. When the concept of this grant application came up, they came in and they agreed to be part of the application, but the foundation decided not to fund that portion. So we will not be providing service to Penrose St. Francis.
How far up Tut does it currently go? To Dublin?
Well, that's Route 23. That's an existing service.
Where does that go now? Where does it stop going north?
Barnes.
Barnes, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's significant.
Yeah. So, and part of this grant was, I mentioned, service to Pikes Peak Community College, the Rampart campus, which does not currently have service. And they just approved they had a student vote 2 weeks ago, and they approved that. So they're agreeing to, similar to the College Pass program that we have with UCCS and CC right now, this allows all PPCC students to increase their student fee by $5. So that gives them access to the system for that semester, $5 per semester per student. But by also adding an additional $5, that will fund that service to the Rampart campus. And so after 2 years, if it is successful and we continue it, then that $5 service fee for service to the Rampart campus will go away, and they'll still just continue with a $5 student fee, unless that changes at some time. So that's good news. 3 major educational institutions in town, all part of a College Pass program. That's a huge win for us. And starting on July 1st, we're going to be having a soft opening of that One Ride joint call center that will be housed at our facility. Customer service enhancements, we've implemented that real-time bus location and arrival information program. We have some new software that allows our van pool customers to more customer service friendly tools to help them manage their van pool operation or membership. Improved ADA bus stop access at bus stops. We implemented smoking and vaping bans on our vehicles and at the downtown transit terminal. Purchased 18 new fixed-route vehicles, the large buses, and 14 ADA mobility vans. Interest in our Facebook and Twitter accounts has increased dramatically over this time. We've expanded our customer service hours, so rather than 8 to 5, it's now, I believe, 6 to 6, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And implemented the Yield the Bus law. That was made state law many years ago, but we were able to get an ordinance passed to allow for that.
It was nice to actually see for a lot of folks who don't pay attention, that the buses actually have those little things on there reminding people.
Right. Yeah. So all the new vehicles that we've brought into our system have that blinker that's up high on the left. And so it's just a matter of time. Our older vehicles that do not have the blinker still have stickers, but eventually they'll be replaced with new vehicles. So this is just a taste of some of what we've been doing over the last couple of years, and we have a lot of good things to do yet, and hopefully the momentum continues, and hopefully we'll start to increase our ridership again, but we will continue to track that.
Brian, quick question if I could. Going back to the Specialized Transportation Call Center, I've actually lost track because it's been going on, 10 years? I think we've been working on
least,
that?
Yeah.
Could you kind of, for the sake of history, bring us up to date from where we started and kind of how we got here? And you said June is the soft opening?
July.
July
1st, yeah. Sure. So as Brian mentioned, more than a decade, this has been a project really of the whole Pikes Peak region, and usually with PPACG's regional transportation plan, part of that they do a specialized transportation plan. So 4 years ago, the plan that was adopted in 2015, the key recommendation that came out of the specialized transportation plan was to stand up that joint one ride joint call center. And prior to that, going back to the mid-2000s, PPACG has kind of housed up the mobility efforts for the region, and that's been a key goal all along. And with a couple steps forward, there were steps back, and theoretically, it sounds really good to make everything more efficient, because when you have 4 or 5 specialized transportation providers providing service, sometimes to different customers who live on the same road, and you have several vehicles, each owned by those entities, traveling down the same road to pick up their own customers, you can do better with efficiency. So the idea and concept is great, but when you start to get into the details of how that's going to impact those organizations and territory jurisdictions, and the types of riders that they serve, not all of them can carry seniors disabled. Some are specific. I believe Goodwill or community intersections, they're limited in the types of passengers that they can carry. So there's issues there. There's issues with how they'll be paid. Silver Key, it's a free service. They ask for donations, but so there was a lot of those details that had to be worked out. Then Mountain Metro, with our ADA paratransit service, we want to be part of that too. We have a certain type of scheduling software that we use. The specialized transportation providers went in another direction with a different type of software, so there were some challenges there. So, yeah, it's been a long haul. And
One of the things I wanted to mention was that the impetus for getting all the groups together started in this committee. Way back when we were having budget battles over $300,000 that was in the original PPRTA authorization, and there were several, for a few years, we were having every year to have the service providers fight over this money. Originally, it was granted to Fountain Valley, and then it was kind of brought to the attention of this group that that wasn't really fair, giving it to just one and not the other. So a working group ended up coming out of this, and then finally it was kind of hashed around. It's like, okay, well, there's a lot of cross servicing going on, and why, instead of having duplication of efforts, why don't we get the service providers to sit down and kind of go over this themselves and come up? So the service providers deserve a lot of credit, even though it's taken a very long time to negotiate and get all this put together. They deserve a lot of credit for sitting down and kind of getting out of each other's way and working together to eliminate duplications and finally get this regionalized service center to become a reality. But just from a historical perspective, I take a great deal of satisfaction that the original idea for all this started here.
And I, just to add to that, was part of that specialized transportation steering committee that for the 2015 long-range transportation plan, and then Reb and I have seats on the mobility coordinating committee, and I can tell you that during that long-range planning process, it was great to talk to somebody, but just don't tread on my territory or don't call my customer, kind of stuff that took place during this process. And so to see where we are now compared to where we were back in 2012, 10, 12, 13 is a huge jump. And so a lot of accolades go out to the whole community, because this is not a one-person fix. It included some give and take on everybody's part, and there are, 6 or 8 specialized transportation carriers now. They've been a couple of new ones, but
right.
I mean, so it's not just 3 or 4 people, and as Brian said, their licensing and their funding and their approvals and stuff all vary among stuff. So this was not an easy task. So thanks for taking the heading this thing up and getting it going, but it's not just one person. This took a group committee to get this thing going, so very good effort.
Good, thank you.
Don?
Brian, if memory serves me correct, last year's legislative session had a bill floating through it that talked to Metro with, I think, Woodland Park or something. Whatever came of that?
Yeah, that was a
Specialized.
legislator-funded research project, I believe, and to look at specialized transportation service up in Teller County, and I'm really not too sure. We can provide some information. I know Craig Blewett, our director, was involved with that, as well as a working committee, and I don't know the results of that.
I know that they designated in the bill a number of Denver participants doing the analysis, which made no sense to me because it's down here. But
I can provide an update and send it to Rick, and he can send it out to the committee.
Thank you.
Sure.
Brian, I thank you for the report. I just got a couple of questions, and it has to do with looking ahead to the future. There's a large effort for infill within the city, and a big piece of that is along Powers Boulevard, Tut Boulevard, north of Barnes, putting in several large apartment complexes there. And And you mentioned that Penrose is not part of this new route. There's no north-south route that I can think of on the west side of Powers, and yet there's a whole large apartment complex, low-income, or apartment complexes being built north of, south of Dublin, and some infill in that area. And you combine that with the rapid growth of the areas around Voyager and Interquest and service to PPCC and that area that's filling in so fast in that corridor over there. It brings me back to, you guys have done an awesome job of recovering and providing and increasing not only the frequency but the locations that you're now covering with new routes and this kind of stuff. But it all boils down to funding, and a sustainable funding, because if you just do it for 2 years and you provide somebody a service and you take it away from them, that doesn't go over real well either. And so, you know where I'm headed with this. It takes me back to Fort, or some of those things that were largely thought out. And I have to keep wondering where, I know where it is. It's sitting on somebody's shelf. And if you don't want to answer this because it's above your pay grade, I get it. But where is the, what's the political climate has changed with that? And for those that don't know what FORT was, it's the future of regional transportation. It was at least a year-long study that was done by a large group of people and a very diverse cross-section of people from across this community that looked at funding sources for long-range expansion of transportation in the region, and it was a fantastic product. Unfortunately, it was produced right at the time of a new mayor and new city council elections, and it fell on deaf ears. But like I said, if you don't feel comfortable answering this, but I guess that had some really good recommendations in terms of long-term funding prospects for transportation. And we're seeing such an expansion north and east of the core of what we're doing here that, in my opinion, the transportation needs are exceeding the needs of the city of Colorado Springs. And that's the focus of the transportation at the point. But there's some filtering into the county, but we've got a tremendous growth in the region. And so I guess my question to you is that I know you're looking at it, I know you personally, and I know you're concerned about it, but as an organization and as a regional entity, where are we thinking, where are we trying to go with support for the region?
Well, so two responses, and one will be very, very short. There's really no movement toward implementing any of what came out of the Fort study as far as a regional transit district or some type of regional
Governance.
transit organization or governance.
Is there any opposition from somebody taking that on and trying to move it?
I honestly don't know, but I just really haven't heard it mentioned from anybody other than you over the last couple of years.
Well, and
that's good. That
really a
discussion's
tragedy.
to stay out there.
I still have my binder, and it's a tragedy because we spent a lot of time and effort to create that study, and in my personal opinion, it's probably one of the best documents that's been produced in this area in the last 10 years for future of regional transit, future of this area. That whole the great diverse crowd that we had a really good vision for the future of our region with regards to transportation, and now we've been seeing a lot of piecemeal and, in my opinion, arbitrary things that are actually causing issues. Trying to carefully choose my words with transportation and commuting within the core of the city and the outlying areas, and that's the same kind of thing That kind of thinking back in the late 60s, early 70s caused us a lot of problem in the 90s. And we're seeing the same thing happening again. It's a short-sighted, short-term kind of transportation planning with a not a holistic regional approach, but a special interest approach, and that's causing issues. And I'm with Jim. I think if there's any way to revive that study and kickstart it again, that's something that needs to be done. And if there's empathetic ears anywhere within city, county, and regional governance, we need to kind of push that along.
Right. No, I agree. It was a great study. Peer-reviewed our system to other systems that we, would like to become someday. An incredible stakeholder process, a lot of involvement from the public. And yeah, as you said, Jim, it was just bad timing between election cycles and the Great Recession, and talking about a new governance for transit at a time when we were cutting drastically. It was horrible timing.
Yep.
The other response I have is, over the last 4 years, and the example that's on this last sheet of the packet here is everything that we've done over the last 2 years and 4 years hasn't really been piecemeal. I mean, we've been following our 2040 transit plan to the letter, which was which was to try to enhance what we have before we expand into those northern and eastern regions. Considering the resources we have, we think there's better benefit with beefing up what we have before we expand. And the expansion to the northern hospitals and PPCC is an example of when we expand into those regions outside of our service area, that's where we look for partnerships, and that's just what we've done. So later this year, we're going to be kicking off our 2045 transit plan. It could be a totally different mindset. It could be more expansion-oriented. We have no idea, but we also have no idea what the funding forecasts are going to look like coming up. We've been really lucky these last 4 years. Hopefully, it will continue. But so yeah, the vision for where we're going is, I think, going to come out of this new transit planning effort this fall. And I'll give you briefings on that, and I'm sure we'll be looking for stakeholders to be part of that advisory committee. So look forward to that.
Yeah, and just for the record, I want to make sure you understand that what you've accomplished is exactly as you said. You're doing exactly what the plan did. It gave you some short-term, low-hanging fruit. You guys are picking on that stuff, and you're doing a great job. And someone who participated in that process, you're doing great. And I don't want any of my comments to take away from what you're doing, because you guys have done awesome, and you are following the plan.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think ahead to where we are and where the city and the region is going regionally, and if the need to match that growth with a transportation plan that supports it. And I hope that it's picked up in the next transportation plan. So I just want to be on record saying that. So
Absolutely, and likewise, that wasn't that when I talk about integration on a holistic scale, I'm talking about citywide traffic planning becoming an impediment not only to transit but also to basic commuting and things of that nature. The way the city is handling it, kind of piecemeal, was something that we were trying to avoid. Mm-hmm. And it's actually starting. We saw it coming and we tried to prevent it, and it's now becoming an issue.
Right.
So yeah, I'm amazed actually what Mountain Metro is able to accomplish with the resources that you guys have been giving. So you guys, it was not a specific comment on how Mountain Metro manages itself, but having to look at our whole transportation system on more of a regional scale rather than just how it's being handled.
Right.
I think Reb had a comment or a question.
Well, it's a comment. And when I say that, literally, the state now has two different distinct, in its CDOT, groups of people. One has just been assigned about a year ago to deal with transportation issues statewide. To bring you up to date on something that's very local, I was not aware that Mountain Metro has kind of control over everything in the area. So Todd Evans,
I didn't know that.
well, that's the way Todd Evans presented it. And when I say that, they have apparently worked out with Mountain Metro a special transportation for the city of Fountain. Everybody's picked up there. I've forgotten the number. There's several locations they can be picked up. But it's basically they take 1 day a week, it's Wednesdays, from Fountain, they'll take them to the Citizen Service Center. The question was brought up, how about making a second stop? And to me, it kind of hit home because Fountain has a very large retired military. And why couldn't they stop at the VA Center? Well, that's outside of a special agreement between Mountain Metro and Fountain Valley or Fountain Municipal Transit. In addition to that, the state, a month ago at a previous meeting, this particular thing was given Tuesday, April the 24th, I think. Anyway, this is a draft of transit development just in our region. And I got one from the state a month before. And basically what it does is it outlines not only funding potential and others see, but it literally gives you a guideline of what's needed statewide and an estimate. But part of the problem is it's all got to be capital and it cannot be buses or something like that. That was one of the issues that you have. So literally they're trying through the state to get a statewide view of what we need to do for public transportation. And part of that is they're working in this region, and I see it. And I witnessed what the Fountain has been able to do working with Mountain Metro.
Sure. Quick couple of comments to that. The transit development plan that Reb referenced, this is similar to the highway development plan that came through the PPACG committees probably a year or so ago. The transit development plan is an outcome of Senate Bill 267, which is a bond issue, and there's also the Denver Chamber is looking at a potential ballot issue for this fall for alternative transportation, so transit, non-motorized, and the like. So we've been asked to comment on developing or helping to develop this transit development plan. So the ballot measure this fall would include capital, operating, and maintenance. The Senate Bill 267, since it's a bond, it doesn't make sense to bond vehicles that have a useful life of about 12 years because it's a 20-year bond. It also doesn't make sense to bond operations. So that's strictly capital. But this list that we've been asked to prepare, we're giving everything. We're throwing everything at them. We have a new downtown transit center that we would like to build. We would like to transition to electric fixed route vehicles over time. We have a new vehicle storage lot expansion that we would like to build since we're growing our system. We're running out of room to store our vehicles. And staff from CDOT has been making the rounds to PPACG's TAC and the MCC and the CAC, asking for input on that. So, yeah, this list is going to be very long because it's a statewide ask, and it's going to include operating, capital, and maintenance. CDOT's Division of Transit and Rail, which has a Transit and Rail Advisory Committee, will then be meeting, I think, later this month to kind of develop or set the parameters for developing a Tier 1 list. So it's going to take this really long list of statewide needs and pare it down to something that could be funded if a ballot measure would pass and Senate Bill 267 monies become available. So it's basically just doing planning, preparing for funds that we don't really know will come, or no guarantee of coming, but we need to do the planning ahead of time. And the fountain issue, since Fountain is not part of the PPRTA, Mountain Metro used to run into Fountain many years ago, but it was one of the casualties of the Great Recession, so that service was cut. Fountain did not join in with PPRTA. They joined their own Rural Transportation Authority. Then there was an IGA developed between Fountain and the City of Colorado Springs, kind of defining our service areas. So that kept Fountain from operating into Mountain Metro's service area, which is an appropriate agreement to have because there's different funding sources. What it did allow for is for the connection of those services to happen at the Pikes Peak Community College's Centennial Campus down on South Academy. So residents from Fountain could take their system to meet Mountain Metro's system and then go throughout the community. What this revised IGA is, and when Fountain came to us, they said they just had an intention to going to the El Paso County Citizen Service Center. So that's what this new revised IGA is about. This is the first that I've heard that they're now wishing that they added service to the VA clinic. That should have come up at that time. But
Well, at that time, I'm not sure of the timing of the IGA, but literally that was an add-on by two different entities at the meeting. Asked Todd, well, why can't we just add a stop? And he had mentioned that there was an existing agreement between City of Colorado Springs and Fountain. And let's see how this works out first before we see if we can get somebody directly to. And the transit service is really customized. It is a driver, picks you up at a certain time, takes you. Your appointment might not be until 1 o'clock in the afternoon. He takes you there at 9 o'clock in the morning, and that's when the service and stays or comes back for you and picks you up. So it's more like your van pool and our ADA stuff. And I thought it was a good question asked by both parties that asked it. Well, let's do. That's not from a government's perspective. That's from an ideal situation. You got a customized service that can take veterans to the Veterans Center, and we've got a lot of them down there. So I just thought it was a great idea. I'm not trying to start a war between you and Fountain. I am trying to get those veterans up to the VA Center.
So, Brian, I had one question for you, and I may be off in left field, but I'm just wondering when I see a change statistically in this report that you gave to us, is there anything, or is anybody considering any possibility that Uber and Lyft may have an impact on the very far end tails of these, like going to the VA and somebody would rather just go ahead and call them and go, and then we've lost an opportunity, or they're going to pick up part of the business that we aren't providing?
yeah, it's possible, and it could be
That's an economic question.
several things going on at the same time
right.
that are adding up to this decrease. But we know that there could be an impact from those ride-sharing services. But I think it's also important to remember that they could be a big benefit. A lot of times we hear about the first and last mile connections. Our fixed route services can get people just about to where they want to go, but it's those last couple miles, and Uber and Lyft and those types of services can provide a pretty good benefit there. But so I think, maybe they're taking a little bit of ridership, but I think they could ultimately be helping our customers in the long run. But I hope we can find out or reverse this trend. And I know, last 2 years I've been reporting that we've been kind of bucking the trend nationwide of transit agencies. A lot of their fixed route ridership has been declining. There's been a few standouts. Washington and Minneapolis in some areas are doing really well. And we were doing really well too, but now this is our second month of a decrease, and we're a little bit concerned, but we're trying not to,
2 months of trend does not
Right,
make.
exactly.
So let's just
Yeah.
try to fix something.
Yeah.
My whole concern was just, could this possibly be part of the impact of
Right,
that? So,
right. Yeah.
if there's an app and a phone, and somebody's going to make some money,
Yeah.
and somebody
Yeah.
needs a ride.
Yeah,
it's-
that's true.
It's a very easy system. So anyway, thank you.
Sure,
for all the
okay,
work.
sure. Thank
Just-
you.
Carlos?
Yeah, just one more brief question here. Where can we get a copy of this study, this Fort study?
It's on our website.
Is it?
Yeah. mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's on the website.
Which way, the Mountain Metro?
Mountain Metro Transit.
Transit.
website.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Mhm, Sure.
Rick?
I just, a little bit, help you out here. If you'd add a line to your matrix, it shows it's pretty bad. It's almost 30,000 ridership. When you talk about one fewer day, what day was that?
Mhm.
It would be rider day was a small rider day, but also, when you break it down, it's less, about 1,000 people a day.
Mhm.
And that doesn't sound near as bad as 30,000.
Right.
So maybe extend your matrix out to show what it is per day, an average per day, and what day it is.
Right, right.
And
Yep,
what-
okay.
How strong the ridership was.
Sure.
The other thing I had was, as city council the other day, there was a gentleman that came up and hit you guys pretty hard on the changing of the free ride deal. And I listened to his presentation, and it had a lot of missing information. And I was wondering, has that been covered real extensively with not only those people affected, but also city council? Because he was also blaming the fact that you were adding ridership to the North End hospitals and the colleges, and that's the reason why they were losing their benefits.
Yeah. We think we've done a good job of explaining, and of course, there are some people who are not happy with that policy change, and we understand that. But we did brief our council members, and we did give them a presentation of what we're proposing earlier in the year, and we're kind of used to that. Misinformation and exaggerations. And we will, that's a policy that will not be implemented until this fall. We wanted to give them a little more time to adjust before that's implemented. So we'll be sending out a notice, even though the policy change has been announced publicly, they'll be getting a personal notice notifying them of the change as we get closer to the September 30th
Well, I know
service
you
change.
guys have worked so hard and so long on getting agreements to the north end of the hospitals and the colleges and everything. I hated to hear it being hardballed down
Yeah.
city council, so I just wanted
Right.
to.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we hear of that too. So,
Any other questions for Brian? Brian, thank you. You guys are doing a great job.
Good.
And just keep up the good work.
All right.
Do as best you can with
Yeah,
what you
that's
got.
right. That's right. All right. Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
Brian.
Thank you.
Item 8A, report of recent board actions. Oh, I'm sorry. Colorado Springs
7B.
monthly change order property acquisition. Any questions? Just an information only. Any questions on the change order? Great. Thanks, Aaron. Great job.
Glad I could bring light to that.
Recent board actions, it's an information item. Anybody have any questions from Rick's memo on that? Sure.
On item 12, that
Ah.
the appeal was going to be heard April 17th, do you know anything about it?
No.
Okay. I thought I'd ask.
I think that is an agenda item for the upcoming board in a closed session. Is that not correct?
It's probably a different item.
Okay, all right. All right, item 8, any other questions on that? Item 8B, report of Annual report to the citizens.
Okay, first, I brought a stack of last year's in case anybody wants to look at it for comparison. I can hand them out if you'd like. No takers, okay. So, open for comments. Yes, sir.
Cover page, the graphic, the banner at the bottom is sort of covering the picture and sort of not. And the two ovals, the two circles for El Paso County and Manitou are both ovals, not circles anymore, because they were smooshed.
Jenny Lyons, our staff member, who's been working on this. Jenny, are you making notes?
Yes.
I noted, is that a new logo for Rama there?
They do have a new,
Yeah.
The water tower.
The water, yeah. I thought that was kind of cool.
Okay. Larry?
Rick, and I know in the last year's, program, and we didn't get really a chance to look at it before it went to press last year, or I maybe missed it, but anyway, the 2007 accomplishments, that we have down here in the bottom
Yes.
of the front page. It's really busy down here with the PPRTA logo, the logos from the different cities. Is there any way that we can make that 2017 accomplishments larger so it stands out better? The 2018 annual report really stands out.
Yeah.
But if you look at, the 2017 accomplishments, which is what we want to emphasize,
Yeah.
does not really stand out. It just sort of, like I say, merges in with everything
Yeah.
there on the bottom there.
Open for suggestions. Where would you like it? Under the 2018 annual report?
Yeah, I say move it up to the blue sky under the 18 annual report.
Yeah, that might be a better place to put it, and maybe in a little bit larger font, so that it stands out a little bit more.
Up here.
Put this up here.
Now,
Okay.
that's a good point. Don't want to
Yeah.
cover up the mountain.
So you put it in clouds.
We've been accused of that before. Gene?
I just noticed something on this. Several of the logos used throughout the document appear to be bitmap images as opposed to a vector image so that they are more clear and distinct. Colorado Springs, Olympic City, looks like it's a vector. Same with Rama. But you can't tell for certain about the county.
Let me let Jenny address that.
I can address that. I have actually have an answer for you for that. I did not have I have requested 3 different logos for those that were pixelated, and they did not have updated vector images. So I'd either have to recreate them as vectors myself or rely on the actual cities. Yes, so that would be your answer. But which one were you talking? You were specifically saying Manitou, Green Mountain Falls, Rama and Green. Yeah.
Rama looks good.
Yes.
City looks good.
Yep.
I can't tell.
The county is a vector. But yes, Manitou and Green Mountain Falls both are kind of pixelated, so I have addressed that with them and hope to get somebody to either make them or I will make them myself and do that as a service to them. So that's okay. Yes. Before it goes to print, yes.
General question. It is hard to see with that blue background at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
The green and the dark, actually Manitou Springs, it's a little difficult because they're surrounded by some busy stuff in their stuff. Rama's very clear, Colorado Springs is not. And I don't think it's pixelation, I think it's a dark background as opposed to some other color.
Mm-hmm. If you actually, so the front cover, so are you talking, let me just pass you this one too. 'Cause the printer, let me get back to the.
A little clearer in a printed.
Yeah, the
and
printed version will be a little bit clearer because of the fact that the printer quality, we're using just a copying machine. The printer quality will be different.
Okay.
It's a picture.
So
I should have looked back at mine.
that's fine. That's a good question. That's a good point out too. Yes.
What about reversing this here with this here? And promises made, promises kept at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Moving that up to see if we can
You
only
mean
get
the blue part?
Yeah.
Taking it farther?
Just reverse that and PPRTA promises.
Right at the bottom.
Over the picture, the logos are over the picture? Yeah. That is how
The logos might get the logos will probably get lost in the picture because the
Right.
color difference, and they won't
Right.
stand out. That would be a good reference, but the fact that we have so many, like with Manitou and with El Paso County, there's nothing surrounding them, unlike Rama and Colorado Springs, that would make them stand out in a picture. So,
Okay, I thought the background color would stay.
yeah,
So it would just be a field of blue.
right. Oh, moving it up slightly so that the PPRTA was included in the blue, kind of, and switch them around. Okay.
The other question I had was, this inset from Colorado Springs projects, the way they laid them out, when I was going through, I thought that was pretty neat. I was wondering, is it possible for the county to kind of use this?
That is a great question. Our GIS mapping man, he's the man in my world because he came up with this idea of the inset map because of the fact last year we have so many projects within the city. You cannot actually see every single little detail. So we tried to come up with something that actually would be able to be legible for everyone, for even the smallest project, even if it's a pinpoint on the map.
On page 4, the text says capital maintenance transit. The graph below is transit capital maintenance, and page 5 is transit maintenance capital. We ought to pick a version and stay with it rather than switching it every single time we show it.
Yes. Yeah.
With regard to the general format, having been involved since we actually started doing this way back when, I want to thank staff for this year's format updates. The last 2 years, staff has pretty much run with this just based off of the guidelines and designs that we had originally developed, and hasn't really needed any input or assistance until the draft review. So I really appreciate you guys doing that, and the GIS improvements and the format improvements, I think are great and well done. Thank you.
That makes me feel good. Thank you.
Carlos?
I have another question. On the very last page, at the very bottom, PPRTA 2 capital projects 15 through 24. On the right-hand side, it has Shook's Run Bridge Corridor Study, and then in parentheses, it has Colorado Springs, and then it's got 3 letters.
Yes,
LVD.
it's supposed to be Boulevard, yes.
Pardon?
That's a typo. Well, thank you for pointing that one out. That would be Boulevard,
Okay.
yes.
Carlos, you had some?
Yeah, no, you're doing a great job. Last year, this goes back to the page 4 and 5, you had a pie chart, kind of a nice visual that offset the page. It's not here this year. Was there a reason you decided not to do it, just not enough room, or just didn't like it, or something? I don't know. I kind of liked it. It's just a quick, you open it up and it draws your attention to the allocation between transit, capital, and maintenance. And currently, right now, in the current report, it's a tabular format, a little bit harder to read.
Right. That is something that we have discussed, and we might add that back in after your comment. I think I do agree with you. It does kind of just give you a glance instead of having to actually read a chart. So I think that might be a good addition for this.
Well,
Try to squeeze it in that page.
Yeah, so we can put it right here.
Okay?
Page,
Tom?
page 6, you could probably take out the insert map for Colorado Springs. And page 8, 9, in the northeast corner, there are two roads that have no tie-in to say what they are. There's no numbers next to them. And the same thing is true down in the southeast.
On which specific page were you saying? On 8 and 9?
Page 8 and 9,
Okay.
I'm assuming these would be on the 9 side. The two roads in the far northeast, and one in the
Make sure you keep your phone.
So those three don't have any designation of what's called Monday, Tuesday,
Right, so right above the number 3, those two roads that are red?
right above those two.
Yes, and then the one at the very bottom. Okay, I will make sure I will put a note on that and fix that for us.
Page 10, you can get rid of the insert the map thing again. And then 42 goes down through the center of that, but 42 is not listed on the right side. For your listing of what's on that map.
Yeah, the inset map boundary, we don't have that in the legend, is why I put that in the actual map itself, is because it doesn't tell you what the actual hash line is.
You're trying to describe what that boundary is.
Correct.
Got it. Now, I didn't
That's-
understand that either. Okay.
Right, so that would be the actual inset, so the next page would actually be that size of that map.
Maybe, maybe adding where it says inset map for Colorado Springs on page.
Detail on page 12.
Okay.
Yeah.
That might make it a little bit.
Yeah, I was confused about that too, but
Okay.
now I understand what you were talking
Yes.
about. Okay.
Yes,
Because
there
it's
is-
not on the same page, it's on another page.
Right, and it's not in the legend because the legend
This.
is universal for what we're doing.
11's over here, I had the same
And while we're on,
Hold it in hand.
sorry, on page 10, the Mark Shuffle road widening, is that, shows as PPRTA 1 capital project. I thought that was still in work. It's showing as complete. It is complete for PPRTA 1?
Yeah.
Okay.
From what, yeah.
The Mark Shuffle South, that's the PP, and then there was a project in both.
Yes.
So the north is still.
Oh, divided into segments. Okay, that clears it up. Thanks.
Any other comments? You got what you need? Oh, wait, what?
Page 16, for the town of Green Mountain Falls, that's one incredibly long word on line 2.
Oh, Green Mountain Falls graded.
There's no space
Compacted,
between any of
and-
the words.
And sometimes the spacing, when you do a full
Page.
justified, it sometimes messes up the spacing, so I will fix that.
Page
Yes, I see that
19,
applied.
19, you need a better map that actually shows what it's doing there with the chart. It's just sort of all
Well,
The Tut Boulevard map is what you're,
yeah, but on the print, the larger format, that map should enlarge.
yes, it will. Yes, this is a half-page version of what it would actually be, so it would be an 11 by 14 if you actually did the full page.
on page 21,
Mm-hmm.
the 18.314 is for phase 1, not for all of Highway 105.
For the budget?
Yes.
Um,
Isn't that correct, Jennifer?
what was the question? Sorry, I missed it.
Where it says budget 18.314 million, but that's only for phase 1, that's not for the whole project.
Of Highway 105.
That is the whole project.
Oh, okay. All right, any other questions? All good feedback. All right, you got what
Still-
you need?
I got what I need.
Still taking comments here?
Oh,
Sorry. Mountain Metro Transit, this is page 14 and 15. This is more of a question for you guys. Does it make sense to include some of the, actually Mountain Metro won an award last year, just highlight
Good point.
that Mountain Metro is an award-winning transit service and just highlight that fact. I do have the press release. I think it was a emissions reduction award that was awarded to Mountain Metro, and just put like a gold ribbon or blue ribbon on here, or something like that to just kind of explains that we have an award-winning transit service, and why not put that in the report?
That's a great feedback. Brian, do we have like exactly what award that was? And if you can forward that to me, that'd be great, and I'll put that in.
Yeah, I have the press release, and I can
Awesome.
provide that. The other, also last year, was also the addition of the Colorado College and UCCS. I think that was actually just brought up earlier, and that these campuses are now part of this, part of the writing. The student fees cover this, so that might be something worth highlighting. What do you guys think? Is that something?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Brian, it's okay to blow your own horn, man. Trust me. That's what this is. That's what this is for.
All right, anything
Absolutely.
else, guys? All good? Any other comments? Oh, he does?
They're in the very back, yes.
Oh, and this is then just a general comment on all the joint projects and 105 and the West Colorado Avenue. They all have project websites now that you can get updates. What do you guys think about putting a link to find out more about this project? Visit this link. For example, West Colorado Avenue has that 105. Trying to think what else. Woodman Road has its own project. Everybody has a project website now, so does that make sense to include that in this report? People can look that up and get further information that's not in the paper report.
Right, so any that are available would be, that would be a really good addition since it will be online. And, adding that could be a simple click and they could go see more information about the project. So we shall get more information on each one of those as well.
We should also, I believe, if I remember correctly, have all those linked from the PPRTA website as well, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Comment on page 20 for the Woodman Road, this is wording choice. This project will widen Woodman Road, is widening Woodman Road. This is ongoing. Almost done.
Almost done.
It's amazing when you see those aerial views.
All right, Carlos.
Again, I think just one more comment. This is page 24 and 25 on maintenance. And again, it's just a question for you guys. Does it make sense to include the City of Colorado Springs, because it's listed here, the 2C, and this is more education. A lot of people view the PPRTA and 2C, they get, they're really separate taxes. But
Yep.
to clarify that, even though it's not a PPRTA project, what about saying something about the City of Colorado Springs 2C project and a link to the website?
I would go just the opposite. I would put not include 2C versus including anything that's inclusive.
I agree. I think it's
I would
too much
clarify that this is
confusion.
non-2C. We've gone at great lengths. While we want to be informed about them, we want to make sure that the public knows they're two different things. And so
But the report is silent. It doesn't say anything one way or the other, does it?
Right.
And so does the silence mean that we don't want to say anything, or do you want to say this is not 2C and say we are not a 2C project? It's just a general question, but I do understand that it is separate, but there's a lot of confusion in the public.
yeah, I'll leave that to Rick's call
Yeah.
from my perspective, but I think we've from the very beginning tried very hard to make sure that people don't confuse the two and that our work is entirely different, and the public struggles with that. So in my recommendation would be is that if we include anything about overlay chip seal or this Colorado Springs maintenance, because there's really, the city has, other than 2C, they have another pot.
Yeah.
And so you could either just say RTA funds only, or does not include other maintenance programs or something, whatever fits. But if we start including those other things, it'll, in my opinion, will just add to the confusion. John?
Yeah, I concur with you. I think we need to keep it simple, keep what is PPRTA's PPRTA, and remember the KISS formula.
Yeah, I've seen, and I agree with Jim, there's been a lot of folks that I've talked to who have conflated the 2C stuff with PPRTA, and if anything, I think we would want to make a statement saying items included in this are not 2C, or just leave it silent.
This is our annual report,
Right.
and so let's keep it that way, just be silent on it.
I think being silent may be the simplest thing.
Yes.
Yeah. All good comments, guys. Anything else?
Yes.
All right, for this one, I need a recommendation from the committee to the board.
So recommended.
Brian and,
Second, with corrections, second.
Corrections or additions?
okay, and
Yeah, what they said.
Brian and Scott, and we made suggestions for improvements or corrections without having to list them all. Is that satisfactory from you guys?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
I have a clarification. If you're going to make these, are we going to have to see them before this goes forward to the board, or just, what? Thank you.
Our motion said we approved our suggestions, so.
Yes.
You'll get the board packet, agenda packet link that will have this in it.
Oh, quick question too. I assume since there haven't been any changes, we're still handling, that was weird. We're still handling it by the same distribution method as we have designed previous.
Security system.
Who made the second?
Scott? Oh, Gene?
Somebody.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Do I hear a motion to approve this annual report as amended by the committee members?
We already
So
did
moved.
that.
Oh, we did that?
We
No, we got to
already did
vote.
it. We're
Okay, get it.
wanting to
All right.
vote.
Okay, all right. Army, yeah, yeah.
Come on, boys.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, great. God, you go away for a month. Go away for a month and look what happens. God, God. All right.
That'll learn you.
Legislative report, Mr. Sonnenberg.
Okay, I've heard from our lobbyist last night. I got the email this morning. Senate Bill 1, the transportation bill, is in the House Transportation Committee and is expected to be heard this afternoon, probably right now. So that's all I know on Senate Bill 1. In your memo in the packet, Senate Bill 88 on the marijuana sales tax, that'll be a topic discussed by the board in closed executive session on next Wednesday.
It's an executive session, maybe not.
So do you want to make this, or just treat this as an information item, or do you want to make a recommendation to the board to continue to monitor Senate Bill 1 and hear from the, of course, when the board has its meeting next Wednesday, that's the last day of the session, so there's not much anybody can do at the time, but I get either treat this as information or have a motion and a second and approval to recommend that the board continue to monitor Senate Bill 1.
Reb has made a suggestion. I could go either way. One is we do like we did last time, that we're not in a position to recommend anything on this, that we leave it to the board's discretion, or we make it an information item that we've reviewed it and have no questions, something along that line. So I'll go with what you guys think. So information only, we reviewed it and put the trust in the board and go with their recommendations. Is that?
Yeah,
that
I
okay?
like that as well.
Okay, then let's, I will, do we need to change this formally in the agenda then? or-
I would think not.
Okay,
Just,
good. Think that's great. We're going to change this to information only per the direction of the chair. And we'll just pass it on to the board in that way. Is that okay?
Yes. I think if you're upgrading from info to recommendation, then you probably need to have a
Okay.
vote to amend the agenda, but if you're downgrading it, my inclination is that you don't need to have a separate motion.
Any other comments or on that? Okay, good. CDOT's update on I-25 project?
You have a memo in your packet that I boiled down from an email from John Hall, the CDOT project manager of the GAP project. I plan to attend the May 16 evening meeting at Liberty High School, just to observe. So the environmental assessment is available on CDOT's special website, and comments can be made on the website and/or at one or both of the public hearings.
A question, I lost track of it when I was traveling, but is the budget that the governor signed that contained a dollar amount for transportation just under 500 million, is that right, or whatever? Is that the number that we've been expecting all along from the legislature in terms of transportation funding? Or was that less or considerably less or more? I guess the bottom line is that will any of that the governor signed impact this, or are we still totally dependent upon the grant for this project?
I can check on that. I have a guess as to an answer, but I don't have a good answer, so I'd rather not
Okay.
posit one forward.
Any other questions on the CDOT? Whoever asked that question last time, that satisfy you? Okay. Any agenda topics for next meeting?
The PPRTA 1 capital project status report that the CAC asked for.
Okay. Thank you for that. Any communications among the committee members? Brian?
Thanks. As some of you may know and remember, 11 years ago I started organizing a ride to assist our local veterans and military. I currently sit as a member of the El Paso County Highway Advisory Commission, and I get all my acronyms, El Paso County Homeless Veterans Coalition. I'm also on the Highway Advisory Commission, but that's different. The 11th annual ride to assist to generate donations to assist our local homeless vets is coming up on 20 May. If any of you know of anybody who would like to participate, or if you want to pass the information around, last year this ride helped to fund the annual stand down that we have. I think the stand down event is in its 19th year. We also have our transitional housing program. We serviced just under 200 homeless vets last year at the stand down. We identified 10 family units for the transitional housing program, which is a bridge program that lasts about 4 to 6 weeks. We put them up in a hotel, give them classes, get them to certain meetings and appointments to get them into programs that get them into stabilized housing and more stabilized work. The transitional housing program is designed for what we call situationally homeless vets. These are folks who either through loss of a job, medical bills, transition from active duty to civilian life, which is sometimes a large shock. We identify family units usually with children. In this case, there was 36 people, 10 family units with 7 children. And within 45 days of the stand down, we had all 10 of them into stable housing, a stable job situation, and they had been through classes on life skills and things of that nature, and I'm proud to report that they're still in those situations. So comparatively across the United States, you usually see about a 20 to 25% success rate. We're running about an 86% out of the last 4 years that we've been doing this. So not only are we making sure that the homeless vets who are sometimes in need of mental care and additional services are taken care of, but we're also helping to get the situationally homeless vets into stable life situations. So it's, like I said, it's a great program. The El Paso County Homeless Veterans Coalition is a coalition of all kinds of groups, Mount Carmel, the VA, My Efforts, the VFW, and all these others. So if you know anybody who wants to participate, this is a no-profit event, meaning every single dime we collect the day of the ride goes directly to the Homeless Vets Coalition.
Great, thank you, Brian. Anybody else have any comments from the committee? Anybody from the public? Carlos?
Just one more comment. Thank you very much, Brian, for that information. I'll try to get it shared on social media. But I also noticed that from the CTAB, Kyle Blakely kind of disappeared. I believe he might have moved away. I just wanted to just extend my thanks to him via the CTAB representatives for his service. I assume he moved away. Is that why he's not on the list anymore as one of the members of the CAC? Just get clarification. But I just wanted to, if he's, I believe he might have moved away, but I just wanted to thank him for his service.
Job transfer, job something, right?
Resigned from CTAP is my recollection.
Okay.
And therefore is not eligible for here as a CTAP rep.
Again, I'd just like to thank him for his service. If there's an opportunity to let him know, I really appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anything else? We're adjourned. Thank you.
I had some this morning. I know.
Hey, Dennis. Good to see you, man. How you doing?
I know. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Just saying hi.
You made me proud. You made me proud. You made the motion, man.
I told you I would make these comments. I had asked for clarifications. I remember.